Gold is awesome. Gold has been both beautiful and useful to humans for as far back as we know. The Greeks used it to represent power and to ward off evil spirits, while the Incas believed that gold was sweat that had dripped from the sun. Gold is often the central motif of many of humanity's greatest stories. Stories such as the birth of Christ, where baby Jesus is gifted gold by 3 wise men, or the golden ball in the Princess and the Frog story, or more recently, the gold-forged Ring of Power in the Lord of the Rings. Gold is so awesome that the chief achievement for the most genetically elite humans is to win gold in the Olympics. And gold is what serves as the underlying asset for the major currencies around the world. Actually, gold hasn't been the standard for a major world currency since the Swiss francs severed ties to gold in 1999. Richard Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard in 1971 through breaking up the Bretton Woods Agreement. The money you use to buy groceries and pay bills is backed by absolutely nothing more than the PhD diplomas that the federal chairs have earned from Ivy League schools. This money is called fiat currency. In his defense, Jimmy Carter did nominate Paul A. Volcker, who pegged the dollar to spot prices of milk, orange juice, corn, and other commodities, but that was a short-lived experiment that showed that alternatives to gold tend to fail. Unfortunately, the severing of the dollar from the gold standard or any other standard gave rise to a shocking lack of wisdom and creativity from major world powers, especially the United States. For comparison, the U.S. debt in 1971 was just under $400 billion, or 35% of gross domestic product. By 2014, the U.S. broke the 101% GDP mark, and as of this video in 2021, the U.S. national debt is sitting at $28.4 trillion, or 125% of GDP, and most American politicians get no traction from running on less spending. Is all hope lost? Certainly not. This channel believes that humanity is in the process of shedding off the forces and structures that prevent an equitable return to a gold standard. After all, necessity is the mother of invention. From the Wright brothers achieving the first in flight to NASA putting a man on the moon, from the wheel being chiseled out of stone to the mighty British railways of the Industrial Revolution, not to mention the Hyperloop and Tesla's Cybertruck, from cave paintings to Gutenberg's printing press to the iPhone and more, necessity has consistently birthed more perfect forms of travel, communication, and many other tools that humans have bought in droves. Each time one of these innovations is created, its value is determined by what the market is willing to pay for it. When the market finds a price that is equitable for suppliers and consumers, then the central banks step in unnoticed and provide a means of exchange so that the producers of those innovations can be compensated the value that the buyer is willing to exchange for the good or service. But central banks have frozen innovation on the very tool that we use to exchange all other innovations: money. Well, not anymore. For years, computer scientists have been attempting to solve a complex game theory puzzle involving trust and consensus. Sound confusing? Well, it is confusing considering elite computer scientists have been working to crack the code of what's called the Byzantine generals problem since the inception of distributed computing systems. Bitcoin, the first viable solution to this problem, wasn't launched until January 3rd of 2009. But what is Bitcoin? Well, now that we've covered the fundamentals of how humanity arrived at this moment, we can dive right on in to why Bitcoin is indeed the new gold. Durability, portability, divisibility, uniformity, limited supply, and acceptability. These are the characteristics that allow for a viable currency. Gold fits all of these characteristics very nicely, especially limited supply. This is why gold was the preferred means of exchange for the vast majority of civilizations across human history. US dollars also fit these characteristics nicely, but as we know, as of 1971, there is no limit to the supply of dollars. What the US dollar does have going for it is its acceptability. That's why dollars are currently the world's reserve currency and primary means of exchange for the majority of international transactions and valuation calculations. Bitcoin beats both gold and US dollars in all these characteristics except one. So what exactly is Bitcoin again? As we have discussed, Bitcoin is a genius solution to a complex game theory puzzle that unlocked the potential for a decentralized network of computers to create a scarce digital resource. Computers, the same radical innovation that put a man on the moon, automated industrial production, and regularly beats chess grandmasters, has now been used to create a superior currency. What the creator of Bitcoin was able to achieve by solving the puzzle is equivalent to what NASA was able to do by going to the moon. Now it's up to evangelizers like this channel and others to do the rest of the job. The hardest part of freeing humanity from fiat currencies may still be ahead of us, but we know that in all ways but one, and that point is shrinking, Bitcoin is superior to gold and the US dollar. In durability, Bitcoin excels because it is accounted for by a decentralized network of computers. No, Bitcoin is not physically tangible in the way most are familiar with the term, so how is it durable if it doesn't even physically exist? If one computer in the Bitcoin network goes down, then there are millions of others that can pick up the slack. In this way, the wealth of a single individual has a much lower chance of getting hacked than the information currently housed on centralized servers for all U.S. investment banks. Centralized information is also much more vulnerable to fraud. Bitcoin's decentralized ledger has been subjected to rigorous attempts to hack and steal money since its launch in January of 2009. Not a single attempt has succeeded. In portability, Bitcoin is as portable as an app on your smartphone. It certainly beats gold by a mile because gold needs to be physically transported in order to complete a transaction in most cases. Bitcoin beats the US dollar because Bitcoin is a product of the internet age, whereas the dollar is still in the process of migrating onto the internet where information is hyperportable. In divisibility, Bitcoin excels because you can send any fractional amount of a Bitcoin to another party within seconds without the need to issue exact change. For gold, due to its physical nature, the divisibility characteristic is its single greatest weakness. In uniformity, each Bitcoin equals the exact same amount. Hour to hour, the value of all Bitcoins may change relative to other currencies, but there is, has, never, and will never be a time when two different Bitcoins will hold a different value to the market. Gold, however, can have varying levels of purity and may have been manufactured in association with a specific national mint that can fall out of favor with the precious metal markets. In limited supply, Bitcoin is superior to US dollars for the reasons we discussed surrounding Nixon's decision to break up the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1971. At any given time, there is a limited quantity of supply of US dollars, but that can and does change dramatically depending on the whim of the board members working at the US Federal Reserve. For Bitcoin, there is no such central authority that can change the supply of Bitcoin. Gold's limited supply is its single biggest strength. The market cap of gold, valued in dollars, is currently $10 trillion. Every time a new ounce of gold is mined, there has to be a process behind the extraction and refinement that costs less than what that ounce is worth on the market. Yes, there is theoretically a finite amount of gold on the planet, but the expense of extracting it further slows the entrance of new ounces to a predictable rate. Similarly, Bitcoin is also mined through an expensive and energy-intensive process. This creates a slow and predictable flow of new supply into the market. In both cases, the predictability of new supply flow contributes to the price stability and in turn creates an ideal means of exchange. In Bitcoin's case, there is a specific and publicly known predetermined quantity of total supply that will ever exist. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. Ever. Current estimates say that the last Bitcoin will be mined in February of 2140. There's a much higher chance that gold will be mined indefinitely into the future, considering the laws of physics would allow for gold to be naturally existent on other planets in our solar system. Just imagine what might happen to the price of gold if astronauts were to report that they found a planet-sized mass in space that contained as much gold as the Earth has oxygen. Lastly, we have acceptability. This is where gold and the US dollar have a significant head start on Bitcoin. This is where you come in. With each additional user of Bitcoin, the acceptance of Bitcoin increases. It really does come down to belief. If you believe that the supply of the world reserve currency should be determined by a small group of people, then you can go right ahead and keep believing that, all while your dollars buy you less and less of the goods and services that you need. But if you believe that the same technology that has allowed for the greatest explosion in innovation that the world has ever seen, the internet, should have a turn in facilitating this tool of communication that we call money, then you should buy Bitcoin. But maybe keep a little gold on the side, just in case. If you found this information compelling and you think you're ready to buy some Bitcoin, check out our daily live stream, Coffee and Crypto, where we dive into the Bitcoin market and discover new opportunities together. If you're still not convinced, that's okay too. We understand that it's wise to do your research on an investment before you make it. In fact, we encourage that. Our last argument to you would be that we truly put our money where our mouth is, as everyone who participated in the production of this video currently owns Bitcoin. We take pride in the communication work we do to educate new people every single day on the currency we believe will soon provide a block-solid means of exchange for the innovations of the future. Peace. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely consider subscribing because we're trying to help you become financially free in these cryptocurrency markets. And also, consider following us on Twitter, @CryptoJeb, for more updates on the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Peace.